Took the Can-Am to hole up all today, did pretty well overall. After the first few mud holes though, it stopped cranking. So I was having to start it by jumping the solenoid down there. Everything else worked okay. I did have a weird misfire at low RPMs. It ran fine top end. Made it back to the truck, loaded it up, no problem. And now I get it back to the house and key switch does nothing. The plot thickens, I got it all pulled apart, checking all the grounds, everything seems good. One thing I did find, Michael, thank you, he said clean this out. And when I did that, I started getting other things happening. So before, everything was dead to the world, right? Just as if you leave this red switch out, piece out, dead to the world. Once I cleaned everything, now I got this weird thing where when I'm in the light position, it runs the fuel pump, it ticks, yada, 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 a bunch of stuff's going on. But when you're in off and on, none of that's going on. Which tells me when I have the headlights on, by the way, they're not coming on, some of that power is somehow back feeding into the system and giving things juice. All right, the crazy Can-Am electrical troubleshooting continues. So I figured out why it wasn't cranking yesterday initially. This is the start button. It was just corroded in there, dog get out, and it wasn't making any connection when I put the ohm meter across it. So I cleaned that out and it seems to be working. Also my DPS button or whatever button, that's why it was full of corrosion too and water, and that's why I couldn't change my DPS modes yesterday. What's up guys? So I finally found the problem. These are the wires that run to the ignition switch. They were routed really poorly between a giant cooler hose, the plastics, and the front bumper. And as you can see, it just so happened that the writing I did yesterday upset them, and they are completely cut through on this orange wire and this red wire. And the other two, the other wires in here don't look great either, so I'm going to fix them all. So that's the issue that was causing me all these weird symptoms, right? But in the process of diagnosing this issue, I found out that all of these contacts and this entire control thing looked disgusting and were barely working. So I was having to toggle them a lot. So that was an issue that was going on. I also found out that this wire down here was almost completely rubbed through on my actuator because the plastics were sitting against it. And I also found that this wire right here was almost completely rubbed through. And in addition to that, this fuse box, which is the fuse for the power steering, was full of water, and the fuse was so corroded that I'm just amazed my power steering was working. You can see all the corrosion in there. So obviously I cleaned out and replaced that. The fuse box is actually pretty well sealed. The relays are in the fuse box, which is one thing that they do better than Honda, where Honda's relays are not in a fuse box. So that's good, but this is pathetic. And this is just because the way Can-Am route stuff is like, oh, let's just put a bunch of zip ties and stuff like that, and we'll zip tie all the wires to the back of this giant tray and then smash them with the seat. It's really, really, really sloppy. Like, in addition, I also have a new ignition in here that I ultra grade up and grease the heck out of, because this one has the DESS problem with it. That's my original ignition. But that's what I'm always telling you guys. Can-Ams are great when they work. However, if you don't have time, expertise, or patience, which I don't have, to keep them running, don't buy one, because this is the kind of stuff that happens. Can-Am uses the same harness and everything. You've got this kind of back, zigzagging wire crap everywhere. Even the main harness that goes to the stator's got an extra loop of wire in it. It's just super, super, super sloppy. Great motors, great suspension. Well, great motors, great shocks, really squeaky suspension. But it rides good, all that greatness. But just the wiring and the execution of just like the whole thing as a unit is crap. So I'm going to solder up all these wires and put it all back together. Try to figure out how to put together this monster and grease everything up in here. But as you can see, yay! The belt is starting to squeal a little bit after yesterday's abuse. The 32s are a tad much for it. I'm thinking about putting it on 30 Aztecs with a 6-inch lift.